Shabbat Shalom, you may be seated. In our Wednesday Parsha study, we focused on 3 verses from the beginning of our Parsha that we read this morning. Leviticus 6:2, 6:5, and 6:6. These verses are remarkable in their repetition of the command regarding the fire on the altar. Eish tamid tuked al hamizbeach lo tichba. A perpetual fire shall be kept burning on the altar, not to go out. Each of these verses emphasizes the command to keep the fire burning on the altar. Generations of commentators have mined these verses for their spiritual meaning, noting how hard it can be to keep our internal flame burning. The flame inside us motivates us, helps us to feel alive, but it can falter, especially in the long winter months as we wait for spring and spring's natural ability to wake us up to wonder. So Passover has an antidote to this type of spiritual deadness, and that is questions. Questions are part of the alchemy, the magic of Pesach. And our starting point for questions, of course, is Nishtana, the 4 questions traditionally asked by our youngest children. Mordecai Kaplan, Rabbi Kaplan, noted that the Seder provides a kind of microcosm for Jewish education, highlighting what our core principles of education are. Number 1, education can and should constitute a religious experience, meaning that education, it's learning and education itself is not separate from religious experience. It is a type of religious experience. Number 2, parents should serve as a child's first teachers. And number 3, the most important training should be in freedom. And that is a message that we find these principles in in Seder, but they are of course not limited to Seder. They are woven throughout Judaism, and of course they are grounded in a verse from Exodus 12:26, when your child asks you, "What do you mean by this rite? What is it that you're doing here?" It's from that verse that we learn the commandment, the mitzvah, implied that we need to actually answer it. We need to teach our children. We need to teach our children based on that verse in response to, but teach them in response to their questions. Implied in this are Rabbi Kaplan's first 2 principles, the telling or the magid that we're about to do tonight, the education itself. Again, is a religious experience. And that's what we find when we come to Seder, right? Why is this night different from all other nights? Well, I don't know. We might be having religious experiences on all other nights, but this is a different type of religious experience. And also, parents are responsible to provide this education. Not only parents, but other types of adults, grandparents, and friends. And Judaism is, especially at this time of year, is very much focused on seeing things through our children's eyes. I want to bring us another teaching from Rabbi Jonathan Sachs of blessed memory, who noted that Torah has 2 words for inheritance, Yerusha and Nahala. Nahala comes from the word Nahal, or river, and it's passive. It's handed down. It flows in. Yerusha, on the other hand, is active. It's actually related to the word lareshet, which has to do with conquer or capture, taking hold of something. And it is this word that indicates a more secure form of inheritance. What we work for after all is more likely to stick. Passover, containing our central origin story, the Exodus, is handed down through Yerusha. And to grasp it, you must actively engage. You have to ask questions. Questions are our way for actively engaging. It's really hard, says Rabbi Joy Levitt, to be a wise child unless you have some wise grown-ups around to help you. So so that's the charge for all of us today. For one who does not know how to ask, the Haggadah tells us you must, and the words are at pateach, you have to open it for him. You have to do some work yourself as a teacher, as a parent, or an adult in the room to help the child. But I also want to put us at ease that we don't need to be intimidated by this idea that we have to be so wise, because it's not such a hard bar to reach. We don't have to have tons of smart things to say, actually, at Seder. We just need to bring our enthusiasm. One of the ways that we encourage questions is to create mystery. The Talmud tells the story that Abaye was at the Seder of his teacher, Rabbah. In the early part of the Seder, Rabbah had all the dishes, including the Seder plate, removed. Abaye asked, "Why are you clearing all the dishes when we haven't even started the meal?" Rabbah responded that Abaye's question was the equivalent of the Nishtana. So he was evoking a Nishtana by doing something strange, and that's what we're asked to do on Seder night. So we learn from this story that the goal of the night is to elicit questions and ask questions. One of my favorite teachers in rabbinical school, Dr. Rabbi Matthew Goldstone, has a tactic for encouraging questions, and it's really, really awkward on Zoom, and it's so beautiful. He offers a teaching, and then he asks if anyone has any questions, and then he waits, and he pauses for a long time. And I don't know if you've ever, as I said, on Zoom, it's especially awkward, right? Because people don't, it's not the same. And actually it works, because this awkward amount of time allows people who ordinarily wouldn't jump in with a question to have the space to formulate the question and ask. So we end up with actually some richer questions and some more thoughtful questions because we leave that awkward silence. So I want us to try something here to get us in the Pesach spirit. I want us now, in the little bit of time we have left, don't worry, we're not going to take too long because we want to get to our Kiddush lunch and on home to spiritually prepare ourselves for Pesach. But I want us to actually do some popcorning, that's a verb, of questions that might inspire, so that we can hear each other's questions, that might inspire us for the Seder table tonight. So, what questions do you have for the Haggadah? What questions do you have about Pesach, about the Exodus story? We are not going to answer any of them now. Don't worry. We are not going to answer them. We are going to offer some questions into the air that we might take with us into tonight. So if anybody, yes. So Victoria is asking, what's something that I can add that's going to make this, I think this is what you're saying, that's going to make this story relevant to today? What's a ritual that we could add? Okay, fabulous. Another question. Yes, and tell me your name. Alex. Okay, and I'm going to repeat your question. Beautiful. So, what does it mean to be the wicked child? Thank you. Yes, Una. Ooh. Okay, and that actually piggybacks on Victoria's question. Una is saying, how can we expand our understanding of what it means to be in leisure? Because this is what way back when leisure looked like. What does sitting at leisurely at a table look like today? Thank you. Okay, another question. Yes, Kay. So actually, here's a great, so a car passerelle sounds like a great idea, says Kay. And what else don't I know about other people's fun traditions? What are other people doing at their Seder tables that might enhance my own practice? Yes, Adam. What do our rabbis say about bringing new traditions into our Seder? And when you say our rabbis, I think you mean the sages of the Talmud. Or I see. Yeah, beautiful, beautiful. And yes, Jean. Yeah, yeah. I love that question because I think these historical questions are really spiritual too, because we are told that we must experience the Exodus. So in order to experience it, I think sometimes we have to really understand what was it like back then? And Jean is asking, well, if everyone was a slave, how did they have a lamb? How did that work? Yeah. Susan. Yes. How do we balance innovation and recognizing that this is a timeless ritual? Where do we not innovate? Where do we hew to the traditional? Beautiful. Yes, David. So I think you're saying that the Seder, we know from the Pew study, right? Everybody says this that the Seder is the most attended sort of like Jewish ritual. And so I think you're asking, how can, if this is the central feature of Judaism as we practice it today, how can we take some of that spirit and enthusiasm and infuse it across other holidays? Like we have, well, actually, we have Shavuot coming. So let me put in a plug. We're going to start in a few days, right? Counting down to Shavuot. So let's maybe carry that enthusiasm through to the next holiday. Yeah. Larry, did you have something? No. Okay. Any other questions? Yes. Beautiful. That is such an important question. I think that's actually the question I want to close us out on. Such an important question. And the question is, what can we learn from the Haggadah and our experiences at Seder this year about what it means to be enslaved, what it means to, I think you used the word marginalized, what it means to be marginalized, what it means to be in Mitzrayim, in a narrow place, in terms of how we think about our world today and how we think about other people who are experiencing slavery that is real, tangible, and slavery that is spiritual and emotional and all the different in all of its different forms. And how can we also be really careful about not trying to overly identify with another person or another group so that we impose or assume that we understand their experience from our experience. We have to be really humble to make sure that even as we're trying to identify, that we don't over-identify, right? Thank you. So in closing us out, I want to say that the Jewish spirit is an open spirit. Again, quoting my beloved teacher, Rabbi Sachs, the task of education is to teach a child to be open to the voice of God and to the miracle of existence. A question asked with sincerity is the opening of a soul. So this is a time where I think a lot of us feel like we want to stay closed, close our doors, our minds, our hearts, out of self-protection, because this is a really, really difficult time. And we do need to protect ourselves and others, but we also need to stay open and active in our pursuit of truth and the truth of our story, but also the truth of others' stories. So I'm wishing all of us a Chag Kasher, v'Sameach, a celebration. We say kasher, which comes from kashrut, but think of it in terms of appropriateness. Let this Pesach be the holiday that you need it to be for you and your families and your community, and let us have a happy and healthy celebration